There is a secret that dwells not in the grand halls of intellect, nor in the philosophies of the wise, but in the unnoticed gestures of the smallest among us. A child does not strive to be impressive. A child simply is. They do not carry the weight of pretense, the burden of image, or the shackles of pride. Their hearts are not yet layered with the masks of self-importance or the armor of ego, and therein lies the mystery, the treasure hidden in plain sight. For what the child has, the world has forgotten. And what the world has learned, the child never needed. The child's wisdom is not in eloquence or argument. It is in simplicity. Simplicity not as ignorance, but as clarity, pure, undivided, unmarred by the complexities we grow into. A child doesn't have to be convinced that life is miraculous. They already know. The butterfly is a wonder, not a specimen. The moon is a friend, not a rock in the sky. A puddle is not an inconvenience, but an invitation to jump. The child knows how to receive the world without fear or calculation. The child's eyes are not clouded by agendas or ambitions. Their hearts are still soft, still open, and heaven speaks into such places. We often believe that wisdom grows with age, and in some ways, it does. But there is another kind of wisdom, the wisdom that forgets itself, the wisdom that kneels low. The child embodies it. They do not seek to rule, only to play. They do not seek to control, only to be near. And when a child runs to the arms of their parent, it is not a calculated decision. It is trust in its purest form. They do not question whether they will be caught. They leap, and they know they are loved. That is the beginning of true wisdom, not to figure God out, but to trust Him entirely. The child's simplicity is also their humility. They know they are small, and it doesn't shame them. In fact, their smallness is what draws love toward them. They are not pretending to have all the answers. They are not defending their intellect or standing on reputation. They are simply present. They are simply present. They ask questions not to challenge, but to learn. They cry out not to manipulate, but because their heart is unguarded. And in that place of need, they reveal the truest state of the human soul before its creator. We were never made to be independent. We were made to walk hand in hand, led by the one who made us. The child also lives in wonder. Everything is new. The ordinary is never ordinary. A falling leaf is worth chasing. A bird's song is worth stopping for. They don't walk through life numb by repetition. Their eyes are still wide. And that is no small thing, for wonder is the posture of worship. Wonder says, I don't need to understand, only to behold. Wonder is not beneath knowledge, it is beyond it. And when wonder dies, so does the soul's capacity to recognize glory. The child still sees the glory. The world calls such simplicity foolishness. It says, grow up, get serious, learn the rules of power. But heaven says something else. Heaven says, I come as a child. It does not say become childish. It says become childlike. There is a sacred difference. The childlike are not ignorant. They are teachable. They are not naive. They are trusting. They are not blind. They are unfiltered. And it is the filter we call adulthood that often blocks the light. We learn to explain away what the child would simply accept. We learn to harden what the child would allow to remain tender. We learn to calculate what the child would receive as a gift. To rediscover the wisdom of children is not to regress into immaturity. It is to return to the source of our design. The child does not fight the reality of dependence. They rest in it. And so must we. The world will always tempt us to stand tall, to assert, to perform. But heaven invites us to kneel, to listen, to wonder. The wisdom of little children is a divine contradiction. It confounds the proud and exalts the lowly. It is the echo of Eden when we walked with God, not as theologians, but as sons and daughters. The child doesn't strive to be seen. They already believe they are known. They don't try to earn. They live in the assumption of grace. They cry without shame, love without condition, trust without hesitation. And it is in these simple movements that the deepest truths are revealed. There was a moment when the Eternal stood in the midst of dust and breath, surrounded not by priests or prophets, but by the smallest of souls. The disciples stood nearby, puzzled by the question of greatness. They expected a sermon on hierarchy, a ladder of spiritual authority, a blueprint for ascendancy. Instead, he called a child into their midst. Not a symbol, not a metaphor, an actual child. He lifted the child into the center of the crowd and said something the world could never have written. Unless you turn and become like little children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. Not just to inherit it, not just to be favored within it, but to enter it at all. That one statement shattered the wisdom of man and lifted the simplicity of the child as the doorway to all that is holy. He did not say become strong. He did not say become intellectual. He did not say become successful, powerful, or influential. He said become like this. And what is this? A child who knows no pride. A child who is not jaded by disappointment. A child who still believes in the goodness of the Father without the scars of betrayal. A child who does not come to the throne demanding rights, but with arms lifted high, needing only to be held. There is something in that posture that opens heaven, something in that surrender that breaks the gate wide open. The kingdom of God is not an empire of self-made men and women. It is not the reward for spiritual accomplishment. It is the home of the dependent, the trusting, the unguarded. A child is not weighed down with titles. They don't come proving their worth. They simply come. They don't approach with the credentials of doctrine or discipline. They come because they were invited. In that invitation, when received with a child's heart, their faith is not born of evidence. It is born of nearness, and so they are closer to the truth than many who claim to understand it. The gates of heaven are not wide and impressive. They are narrow and low, too low for the proud to pass through standing, but perfect for those who are willing to bend. The child does not struggle to bend. They live low. They don't fight for thrones. They're content with the lap of their Father. And that contentment is not passivity. It is the highest wisdom. It is the wisdom that says, I don't need to control the journey. I only need to hold his hand. The ones who walk into the kingdom are not always the ones you expect. They are not always the learned, the refined, or the powerful. Sometimes they come barefoot, with dirt on their cheeks and laughter in their lungs. Sometimes they come with scraped knees and wide eyes. Sometimes they come with a whisper instead of a roar. But they come. And when they do, heaven rejoices. The child does this without hesitation. We think maturity is about growing beyond dependence. But in the kingdom, maturity is returning to it, not as weakness, but as wisdom, not as helplessness, but as surrender. The most mature saints are those who have learned how to rest again. There is a voice that echoes through the ages, older than time, and yet speaking now. It is not the voice of thunder, though it can shake the mountains. It is not the voice of crowds, though it speaks to multitudes. It is the voice of the one who once walked in the garden calling out to the man, "Where are you?" It is the voice that does not accuse, but invites, not the voice of condemnation, but of return. It is the voice that calls us not forward into progress, but back into something ancient. Not into something new, but something pure. It is the voice that says, come back to the beginning. And to return to the beginning is to return to the heart of a child. The child was never far from God. It is the adult who wandered. The child does not run from love. The child runs to it. The child does not question whether they are worthy. They simply open their hands and receive. The child does not harden their heart. They have not yet learned how. Their heart is soft like clay, still tender to the touch of the Father's hand. Friend? But somewhere along the journey, the heart that once believed without hesitation began to close. Disappointment formed calluses. Betrayal taught the soul to flinch. Fear built walls around the once wide-open spirit. There is a danger in forgetting what it means to be small. There is a danger in becoming wise in our own eyes. The world teaches the art of self-sufficiency. It calls strength the goal and independence the prize. But heaven sees things differently. Heaven rejoices not in the strong, but in the lowly, not in the self-made, but in the surrendered. The road to the throne always begins in a manger. The crown is first worn as humility, and the King of Kings came not with sword and scepter, but as a child. That alone should tell us something. That alone should tell us something. The way back is not up, but down. Not outward, but inward. Not into complexity, but into simplicity. The call to return is not a command to become naive. It is not a stripping away of discernment, but of distrust. It is not to abandon maturity, but to rediscover the childlike wonder that maturity was never meant to destroy. Somewhere in the midst of growing up, we began to confuse wisdom with skepticism. We began to replace mystery with formulas. We exchanged awe for analysis and reverence for routine. But the child still believes in beauty. The child still looks at the stars and sees more than fire. The child still believes a whisper can move a mountain. And heaven has not forgotten that kind of faith. To return is to lay down the weapons we forged in fear. It is to take off the armor of self-protection and stand uncovered before the one who sees. The child has no image to maintain, no mask to uphold. They are not striving for perfection. They are living from connection. The child does not ask how they are seen. They assume they are loved. They do not try to earn favor. They walk in it. And to return to this posture is not regression. It is restoration. It is not the end of the journey. It is the recovery of what was lost along the way. The return is also a return to vulnerability. The world scorns vulnerability. The world scorns vulnerability. It equates it with weakness. But heaven calls it strength. The child is vulnerable because they have no need to hide. Their heart is not fractured by comparison. Their worth is not measured by applause. They are content to be loved, even when no one else is watching. And that is the place where intimacy with God is born. Not in the performance, but in the quiet moments when no one sees and the soul is still. That is where the Father speaks. That is where the child listens. And that is the place we are called to return to. The prodigal left home with ambition and returned with desperation. But the Father was waiting. He did not ask for explanations. He did not demand repentance before affection. He ran. He embraced. He clothed the Son not with shame, but with restoration. That is the heart of the call to return. It is not driven by fear. It is drawn by love. It is not about guilt. It is about grace. And the one who responds to that call, not with pride, but with the heart of a child, will find that the door was never locked. It was always open, waiting for them to come home. The child never questions if they belong. They simply enter. They are not burdened by the need to prove themselves. They are not worried about their qualifications. They walk into the room as if they were meant to be there. And that is the invitation still being offered. Not to strive, not to achieve, but to return. To hear the voice again, calling not from the distance, but from the nearness of a whisper. To return not to a place, but to a posture. To return to the faith that believes without needing to see. To the joy that dances without a reason. To the love that does not doubt its place in the Father's house. There is a sacred rhythm written into the heart of a child, a divine echo that the world forgets as it grows louder. It is not rushed, not burdened by the pressure of time or the fear of failure. The child wakes not with a schedule, but with wonder. They do not measure the value of a day by what they achieve, but by what they discover. Each moment holds possibility. Each second is wrapped in mystery. And in that rhythm is something the soul was never meant to outgrow. There is a stillness in the child that allows space for awe, and in that space heaven whispers. The child is present, not merely existing in the moment, but fully alive within it. They are not haunted by the past or anxious for the future. They are not distracted by the noise of the next thing. Their eyes are not clouded with the what-ifs and should-haves that crowd the adult mind. Their joy is full because it is undivided. The puddle in the road is not an obstacle. It is an invitation. The ray of sunlight through the window is not ignored. It is followed. The laughter of another is not a threat. It is a call to join. And this, too, is wisdom. The world teaches acceleration. Faster is better. Do more. Be more. Move. Accomplish. Climb. And yet in all the striving, something quiet gets left behind. Something gentle. Something holy. The child does not move in haste. They linger. They repeat. They explore. And in doing so, they touch truths that speed will never reveal. The kingdom is not rushed. The things of God unfold like a seed in the soil, hidden slow, steady. The child is unoffended by the pace. They do not despise the small beginnings. They do not demand instant results. They are content to grow. The child also knows how to rest, not as a break from productivity, but as a way of being. They do not feel guilt for stopping. They do not apologize for sleeping. Their bodies follow a rhythm of trust. They trust the day will be there when they wake. They trust someone will carry what they cannot. They do not keep watch at night out of fear of the unknown. They sleep because they believe they are safe. And this, too, is worship. Rest is not laziness. It is a declaration that the world does not turn by our striving, but by His grace. The child sleeps deeply, not because life is perfect, but because their soul is unburdened. The wisdom of the child is also found in their attention. They see what adults overlook. The flower breaking through the crack in the sidewalk, the bird perched on the wire, the sound of wind through leaves. These are not background noise to them. They are events. They are signs. They are gifts. The child does not multitask the beauty of the world. They give it their full gaze. And it is only in full gaze that we begin to behold. And only in beholding do we begin to see the fingerprints of God again. The child feels deeply. Their hearts are not yet numb. They cry quickly, laugh easily, forgive readily. They are not practiced in bitterness. They are not experts in holding grudges. Their sorrow is unfiltered, but so is their joy. When they love, it is without calculation. When they forgive, it is without condition. They do not demand a debt be paid. They move on, as if their hearts were not made to carry burdens longer than a moment. And perhaps they were not. Perhaps ours were not either. In a world that rewards detachment, the child remains connected to emotion, connected to beauty, connected to people. They are not too proud to need. They are not too busy to notice. They are not too afraid to reach out. Their arms are still open, and open arms are the posture of heaven. Open arms are what the cross looked like. Open arms are what grace feels like. And the child lives in that openness without trying to explain it. The child does not need proof to believe. They believe because something inside them has not yet forgotten how. They believe in what they cannot see. They trust in what they do not fully understand. They hope without evidence. They dream without fear. And it is this faith, not sophisticated, not doctrinal, not perfected, but pure, that moves the heart of God. It is the kind of faith that says yes before it asks how, that leaps before it measures the distance, that loves before it counts the cost. The child walks through life with hands open, ready to receive, ready to give, ready to be led. And that is not immaturity. It is the mark of a heart that remembers Eden. A heart that never stopped believing that to walk with God is not to master Him, but to be held by Him. There is something about the laughter of a child that pierces through the noise of the world. It is not guarded or filtered. It does not seek permission. It rises from somewhere deeper than circumstance and flows like a stream untouched by drought. That kind of joy does not come from comfort or convenience. It is born of trust. It is the fruit of a heart unburdened by self-consciousness, a heart not yet taught to be suspicious of gladness. It is a reflection of something eternal, a joy that echoes the original song sung over creation. The child has not learned to suppress it. They laugh because their soul is free. The child does not calculate the cost of joy. They do not ask if it is appropriate. They do not delay it until the circumstances improve. They do not hoard it for when it is deserved. They live in it. They enter into it the moment it calls. They dance without choreography. They sing without tune. They are not concerned about how they are seen. Their delight is full because it is pure. And in that purity is a mirror of heaven's own gladness, a gladness that rejoices not in perfection, but in presence. In the world, joy is often conditional. It is tethered to outcomes, fragile and fleeting. It depends on success, approval, and control. Oh! But the child teaches another way. Their joy is not postponed until the storm passes. They find joy even in the rain. The puddle is not a nuisance. It is an adventure. The inconvenience is not a frustration. It is an opportunity. They are not afraid to be interrupted. They are not offended by the unexpected. Their joy is not rooted in the absence of trouble. It is rooted in the presence of love. And where love is, joy follows. The child also weeps freely. They are not taught to hide their tears. They do not apologize for sorrow. Their grief is honest and their cries are unedited. And yet even in this there is wisdom. For the child knows that sorrow is not shameful. They know that to be comforted is not weakness. They know that tears are not a betrayal of strength. They are part of it. They do not build walls to protect themselves from pain. They do not numb their hearts. They bring their pain into the open, and by doing so, allow it to be healed. The child's sorrow is brief, not because it is shallow, but because they do not resist the comfort of love. In the kingdom, those who mourn are not forsaken. They are blessed. They are seen. They are promised comfort. The child does not struggle to receive that comfort. They do not turn away when love reaches out. They lean in. They crawl onto the lap of peace. They bury their face in the chest of grace. And this too is wisdom. Not the absence of sorrow, but the refusal to bear it alone. The joy of the child is not only personal, it is contagious. They invite others into it without hesitation. They are not possessive of happiness. They do not compete for attention or hoard affection. Their joy increases when it is shared. They want others to laugh with them, to play with them, to see what they see. Their hearts are not divided by envy. They are multiplied by generosity. And this is the kind of joy that builds community, that heals division, that overcomes fear, a joy that draws others in rather than sets itself apart. The child finds wonder in what adults ignore. They marvel at the texture of a leaf, the shape of a cloud, the color of a stone, The world has not yet dulled their senses. They do not demand entertainment. They find delight in simplicity. A box becomes a castle. A stick becomes a sword. A shadow becomes a game. And in that play, they step into a space that is sacred. A space where imagination awakens faith, where delight opens the door to the divine. In that place, time slows down. The child is not in a hurry. They are not rushing to the next thing. They are not missing the moment for the sake of what comes next. They are fully there. And in their presence is a reflection of the one who is I am, not I was, not I will be, but I am. The child abides in the present because that is where love is found. And love is enough. The world is complicated joy. It is wrapped in rules and conditions, but the child peels all of that away. They return it to its essence, an overflow of trust, a song that rises from knowing they are loved. They do not earn joy. They enter into it, they do not create peace, they rest in it. And that resting becomes the soil in which rejoicing blooms.